Hello, BookTube. This is another weekly read. I had a much better reading week this week than I did last week. I read two books, I had one bail, and I started another one. So, first of all, I read from Friday, at the library, and after I got back from the library, and then over Saturday and Sunday. Which I had some family come over Saturday and Sunday, so I didn't get as much reading as I would have liked done, but I did manage to finish. Is I like to watch Arguing My Way Through the TV Revolution by Emily Nussbaum. Now, this is one of the books I'm reading for the BookTube Prize, and as such, I will not be talking about my opinions in this video. I've already filmed a review, and it will be released shortly after the results of round one are announced. So, basically on Monday, I had hoped would be a really good reading day because my mom had a doctor's appointment and I usually go with her, so I will be reading while she has her appointments. Unfortunately, there was a monumental screw up. One of the tests she was going to have run it's like 2 years and a day or two. And it's like, we're 2 weeks away from 2 years. So we had to push it back about 3 weeks, and it was just a disaster. I did get some reading done. Unfortunately, the book I had picked was The Age of Entitlement by Christopher Caldwell. I made it about 20 pages in. This book is just shit. I mean, it's badly written, incoherently argued. It's just, yeah. The cherry on top of a very bad day. Like a rotten cherry on top of a very bad day. So, starting on Tuesday and going through Wednesday and Thursday, I read Why We're Polarized by Ezra Klein. I quite like this book. It has a very interesting thesis about why we're polarized, and Klein goes into a lot of psychological research, sociological research, political research to show how exactly America has become increasingly polarized and partisan since the 60s, and particularly increasingly today. It's a very interesting read. I quite liked it. There are some parts that I think could have been better organized or maybe better explained. And I think certainly the last chapter is a disappointment, and I think Klein himself recognizes that last chapter, the required recommendations of how do you go back to the way things were. I mean, of course, that's really not a very appetizing, not a very appealing thought, because a lot of the non-polarization before, say, the 60s, before America's politics became polarized, was generally predicated on the National Democratic Party's aiding and abetting basically a one-party authoritarian state in the American South. So, I'm not entirely sure, anybody really wants to go back to that. But, well, I mean, yes, obviously, but you get the idea. I mean, there are obviously some people who would like to go to that and expand it to the entire country, but they're generally not very good people. Anyway, but I kind of thought maybe an interesting concluding chapter would have been, rather than how do we become less polarized, how do you adapt to this polarized situation, a polarized country? How does one adapt to it? I mean, there's no indication that this polarization is going to go away anytime soon. So rather than how to become less polarized, how to just adapt to it, I thought would have been a much better and more interesting ending. But anyway, I did quite enjoy this book. Lots of very interesting thoughts in it. Especially given like how like the Republicans are to a degree the more polarized party, because the pressures for them are to become more conservative, while pressures for the Democrats is for them to be less extreme because of the diversity of the Democratic coalition, which runs the political gamut compared to Republican politics. But anyway, and then finally, the book I just started is Black Wave, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and the 40-year rivalry that unraveled culture, religion, and collective memory in the Middle East by Kim Ghattas. I'm so far 2 chapters in, and I am loving it. Definitely, this is a fantastic book. I will talk about this some more next week when I have hopefully finished it. I'm hoping to finish Black Wave by Sunday, and then from there I will move on to Charged, which is again one of the books up for I'm reading for the BookTube Prize, and of which I will not be talking about until the results are announced for round 1. Since obviously I can't really talk about that book, I would like to have something I can talk about. So, if I manage to finish Charged before next Friday, which I'm thinking probably might be a whole week read, the weekend I will probably be reading, and I'll get up more next week if that's the case, American Manifesto by Bob Garfield, and Writing Comics. And then the last 2 books I have that I have currently for the BookTube Prize, Sea People and The Great Pretender, I will read the following week, if everything goes according to plan. And in order to have something to talk about, I might find something else to read. But that is next week's weekly reads. And until then, I will see you Monday. Hopefully. My mom has another appointment, and that one might be a bit of a trial. Anyway, until then, BookTube, see you Monday.